The security footage showed him kneeling beside her bed at 3 a.m., but it wasn't what Victoria Blackwood expected. Tears streamed down Marcus Wilson's face as he placed something on her nightstand, a small, handcrafted wooden box containing a note that would change both their lives forever. If you're moved by stories of unexpected kindness and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming tales that remind us of the goodness hiding in plain sight. Victoria Blackwood hadn't always been suspicious of others. There was a time when the tech billionaire had trusted freely, laughed easily, and believed in the fundamental goodness of people. That was before her company, Black Box Technologies, revolutionized home security systems and made her one of the wealthiest women in America. Before the endless parade of people wanting something from her. Before the betrayals. At 42, Victoria lived alone in her sprawling coastal mansion, 22,000 square feet of marble, glass, and emptiness that echoed with her footsteps. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd made billions helping others feel secure while she herself never felt safe. Which is why, after the third unexplained incident in her home, finding her prized first edition Hemingway moved from its shelf, a window mysteriously unlocked, she'd installed her company's most advanced security system throughout the mansion. Not the commercial version available to the public, but the prototype only she and her top engineers had access to. Tiny, virtually undetectable cameras with motion sensors were embedded in every room, hallway, and corner of her estate. The system would alert her phone immediately if it detected unusual movement patterns or unrecognized faces. Victoria told no one about the enhanced security, not her assistant, not her housekeeper, and certainly not the new janitor her property manager had hired 3 months ago. Marcus Wilson was a quiet man with tired eyes and calloused hands. At 38, his face carried the weathered look of someone who had endured more than his share of life's hardships. Victoria knew little about him beyond the basics in his employment file: single father to a 10-year-old daughter named Lily, honorable military discharge, impeccable references from previous employers. He worked nights, keeping the mansion immaculate while Victoria slept, or tried to sleep, her mind often racing with new product ideas or acquisition strategies. They rarely crossed paths. Occasionally, Victoria would spot him polishing the grand staircase or meticulously dusting her collection of rare art pieces as she left for early morning meetings. He always nodded respectfully, his eyes never lingering too long, before returning to his work. There was something dignified about him that Victoria found unusual in someone who cleaned other people's homes for a living. The first alert came on a Tuesday night in November. Victoria had been in San Francisco for a board meeting and returned home exhausted. Her phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. Someone was in her private study, the room that housed her most valuable possessions and confidential company documents. Heart pounding, Victoria opened the security app. The night vision footage showed Marcus standing before her desk, holding something in his hands. He wasn't cleaning. He appeared to be reading her personal journal that she'd accidentally left out. Victoria's finger hovered over the button to call security when Marcus carefully closed the journal and returned it precisely where he'd found it. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out a handkerchief and wiped away a tear before resuming his cleaning duties. Confused but still suspicious, Victoria decided to wait and watch. Over the next 2 weeks, the security system captured Marcus in various rooms of the mansion, always performing his duties diligently. But there were moments, brief, private moments, when he would pause and seem to speak to himself, or look at something on his phone that made him smile sadly. One night, the cameras caught him in the mansion's library. After dusting the shelves, Marcus pulled down a medical reference book and began frantically flipping through pages, taking photos of certain sections with his phone. Victoria zoomed in on the pages. They were about pediatric oncology treatments. The following night, Victoria received another alert. Marcus was in the kitchen, but instead of cleaning, he was preparing a meal. He carefully packed what looked like homemade soup into containers, along with fresh fruit and a small dessert. Victoria watched as he placed everything in a worn backpack before continuing his shift. Her suspicion began to transform into curiosity. Who was this man who cleaned her home with such care while carrying what seemed to be a heavy burden? The answer came 3 nights later when Victoria's phone buzzed with an alert she never expected. Marcus Wilson was in her bedroom while she was away on business. The footage showed him kneeling beside her bed, placing something on her nightstand. Victoria's heart raced as she watched him wipe tears from his eyes before quietly leaving the room. When Victoria returned home the next morning, she found a small, beautifully crafted wooden box on her nightstand. Inside was a handwritten note and a child's drawing of a house with 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, standing outside. The note read, "Ms. Blackwood. I know I have no right to enter your personal space, and by the time you read this, I will have already resigned from my position. I've noticed the cameras. I understand your need for security and privacy, which I've violated. For that, I am truly sorry, **. My daughter Lily drew this picture of your home. She's been fascinated by it ever since I started working here. I've told her stories about the kind, brilliant woman who built this beautiful place. Stories I've pieced together from articles I've read and things I've observed while working here, **. Lily has leukemia. The treatments have stopped working, and the experimental therapy that might save her isn't covered by insurance. I've been working 3 jobs trying to save enough money, but time is running out for her, **. I don't expect your help or sympathy. I just wanted you to know that your success has inspired a little girl to dream of growing up to build beautiful things that help people feel safe. Even when she feels scared herself, **. Thank you for the opportunity to work in your home these past months. The extra income has helped us more than you know, **. Respectfully, Marcus Wilson." Victoria sat on the edge of her bed, the note trembling in her hands. For the first time in years, she felt something crack open inside her, a wall she'd built so carefully around her heart. She immediately called her property manager, who confirmed that Marcus had indeed resigned that morning, apologizing for any inconvenience. When Victoria asked for his contact information, the manager hesitated, citing company policy. "This is my company, and I make the policies," Victoria said firmly. "I need his address. Now." An hour later, Victoria's sleek Tesla pulled up outside a small apartment building in a working-class neighborhood 30 miles from her estate. She sat in the car for several minutes, questioning what she was doing. Why did she care about this man and his daughter? Why had his note affected her so deeply? Perhaps because in his quiet dignity and desperate love for his child, Marcus Wilson represented everything Victoria had lost faith in: genuine human connection untainted by greed or ulterior motives. With the wooden box in hand, Victoria climbed the stairs to apartment 3B and knocked. When the door opened, Marcus stood frozen in shock, still wearing the uniform from his second job at a local gas station. "Ms. Blackwood," he stammered. I can explain. May I come in?" Victoria asked quietly. The apartment was small but immaculately clean. Photos of a smiling girl with Marcus's eyes lined the walls, charting her growth from infancy to recent years, when her smile remained bright despite the visible effects of her illness and treatments. From a back bedroom, a small voice called out, "Dad? Who's there?" Marcus's eyes filled with panic. "It's just someone from work, Lily. Rest now." But Victoria had already moved toward the voice. In a tiny bedroom decorated with space posters and science books sat a thin girl with a colorful scarf wrapped around her head. Her eyes widened when she saw Victoria. "You're her. You're the lady from Dad's work. The one who invented the safety boxes," Lily exclaimed, her excitement momentarily overshadowing her obvious fatigue. Victoria smiled, surprised the child knew who she was. "Safety boxes? You mean the black box security systems?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Dad says you make things that keep people safe. I want to do that too someday. I'm going to build houses that can't fall down in earthquakes. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression a mixture of embarrassment and fierce protectiveness. Lily, Ms. Blackwood is very busy. She just came to meet you, Victoria interrupted, sitting carefully on the edge of Lily's bed. Your dad left something at my house, and I wanted to return it personally. She handed the wooden box to Lily, who opened it with delight. Dad made this. He makes the best things from wood. It's beautiful, Victoria agreed, noticing for the first time the intricate carvings on the box, tiny stars and moons that matched the decorations in Lily's room. Your dad is very talented. He has to work a lot, Lily said matter-of-factly. Because I'm sick and the medicine is expensive. But he tells me stories every night, no matter how late he gets home. Victoria glanced at Marcus, who looked away, his jaw tight with emotion. What kind of stories? She asked Lily. All kinds. But my favorites are about the mansion where he works. He says it's like a castle by the ocean, with rooms full of treasures and windows that look out over the whole world. Lily's eyes shone with wonder. He says the lady who lives there built it all herself because she's smart and works hard. Victoria felt something shift inside her chest, a painful, beautiful awakening. How long had it been since she'd seen her life through such innocent, admiring eyes? How long since she'd felt anything but suspicion toward others? Your dad is right, Victoria said softly. I did build it myself. But you know what? It doesn't feel much like a castle when you're all alone in it. After Lily fell asleep, Victoria and Marcus sat at the small kitchen table. Between them lay medical bills, insurance denials, and brochures for experimental treatments at a specialized children's hospital across the country. I wasn't stealing from you, Marcus said, his voice low and strained. I've never taken anything from your home. Except photos of medical books, Victoria said gently. Marcus looked up, startled. The cameras. Of course. He ran a hand over his face. The hospital library closed their public access section due to budget cuts. I couldn't afford the medical journals online. I just needed information about new treatments to ask Lily's doctors about. And the food you were preparing in my kitchen? A flush crept up Marcus's neck. Sometimes there isn't enough money for groceries after the medical bills. I would never have taken anything valuable. Just leftovers that would have been thrown out anyway. For Lily. Victoria nodded, understanding completely now. And my bedroom? Why were you there? Marcus looked down at his calloused hands. Lily asked me what your bedroom looked like. She has this idea that successful women have magical spaces where they dream up their inventions. A small smile touched his lips. I told her I couldn't go into your private rooms, but she kept asking. That night, the doctors had just told us the current treatment wasn't working. She was so disappointed. I thought leaving the box with her drawing might. I don't know what I thought. It was inappropriate. I'm sorry. Victoria reached across the table and did something she hadn't done in years, she took a stranger's hand in hers. I'm the one who should apologize, Marcus. I've been watching you, suspecting you, when all you've been doing is fighting to save your daughter. The next morning, Victoria made 3 phone calls. The first was to her personal assistant, instructing her to clear her schedule for the next month. The second was to her company's head of research and development, requesting immediate access to their medical technology division. The third was to the chief of pediatric oncology at the nation's leading children's hospital, a woman who happened to owe Victoria a favor after Black Box Technologies donated a state-of-the-art security system to the hospital following a series of equipment thefts. By that afternoon, Victoria had arranged for Lily to be evaluated for an experimental treatment program. By the end of the week, she had established a foundation to help families cover costs associated with childhood cancer treatments. And by the end of the month, she had moved Marcus and Lily into the guest house on her estate, close enough to the hospital for Lily's treatments and close enough to Victoria's mansion that Marcus could continue working there without the exhausting commute. The security cameras remained, but Victoria no longer checked them obsessively. Instead, she found herself spending evenings in the guest house, listening to Marcus tell Lily bedtime stories, occasionally contributing technological details that made the little girl's eyes widen with wonder. One evening, as Lily slept peacefully after a promising treatment session, Victoria and Marcus sat on the guest house porch overlooking the ocean. "Why did you help us?" Marcus asked, the question that had been hanging between them for weeks. "You barely knew us. I violated your privacy. You could have had me arrested." Victoria considered the question carefully. "For years, I've built systems to keep people out. To protect myself from those who might take advantage of me. I became so focused on what I might lose that I forgot what I might gain by letting people in." She looked toward the main house, its windows glowing warmly in the twilight. "I built that mansion to be a sanctuary, but it became a prison of my own making. Empty rooms filled with expensive things but no laughter, no purpose beyond work." Marcus followed her gaze. "It's a beautiful home." "It's just a structure," Victoria replied. "You and Lily, you've shown me what makes a real home." She smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Besides, I need someone to help me test the new pediatric medical monitoring system Blackbox is developing. Who better than a brilliant engineer in training like Lily?" 6 months later, the security system captured a new kind of footage. Victoria, Marcus, and a healthier, stronger Lily baking cookies in the mansion's kitchen, flour covering all three of them as they laughed. Victoria had moved the cameras to the perimeter of the property, focusing them outward rather than inward. She no longer needed to watch what happened inside her home, she was too busy living it. 1 year to the day after Victoria found the wooden box on her nightstand, she placed her own gift on Marcus's pillow, a small velvet box containing a key and a question. That night, as the three of them sat on the mansion's terrace watching the sunset, Victoria realized that the security she had sought for so long hadn't come from cameras or alarm systems or wealth. It had come from opening her door to a janitor and his daughter who had nothing to give but their authentic selves, and discovering that was the most valuable gift of all. As Lily's health continued to improve, Victoria's foundation helped hundreds of other families facing similar battles. Marcus eventually became the foundation's director, using his first-hand experience to create programs that addressed not just medical needs but the emotional and practical challenges families faced during treatment. The mansion that had once felt so empty became a place of purpose and joy. Victoria converted the East Wing into a research center where engineers and medical professionals collaborated on new technologies to improve pediatric care. Lily, now in remission and thriving, became the center's youngest consultant, offering the invaluable perspective of someone who had experienced these treatments firsthand. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the mansion grew still, Victoria would sometimes pause in the doorway of what was now their family room, watching Marcus help Lily with her science homework or read her stories about brave explorers and brilliant inventors. In those moments, Victoria understood that the true security system she had needed all along wasn't built with circuits and cameras, but with trust, compassion, and the courage to be vulnerable. The billionaire who had hidden cameras in her mansion had discovered something no technology could provide, the healing power of human connection and the profound security that comes from knowing you are truly seen, not through a lens, but through the eyes of those who love you for exactly who you are. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more tales that remind us of the extraordinary connections that can form when we least expect them. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't the ones we protect behind locked doors, but the ones we discover when we find the courage to open them.